TNA Bound for Glory, or as I like to call it, Bounce for Glory, as we saw Leon Slater, Javon Evans, the match. Oh, so much talking points, as well as the unfortunate releases from WWE as well. We're going to get into that and more. This is WrestlXtra. Yo. This is WrestlXtra. I'm your boy, A-Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my tag team partner, the man, the Oracle, the professor that is Gerard Bonner. My guy, we're going to go straight into this one because this is crazy. Let's go straight to Bound for Glory. I would say, on a whole, a very interesting, and that's the word I'm going to use, a very interesting PLE from TNA, one of their biggest of the year. Record attendance, amazing for them. We saw so many stars. We saw the different matches, a lot going on. People have been talking about the booking of the whole show, the different matches, some of them good, some of them really bad, some of them kind of TNA-esque in a sense as well. But we're going to go to one of our most anticipated matches of the show, which was Javon Evans versus Leon Slater for the X Division Championship. Leon Slater, of course, the X Division champion. Javon Evans from NXT. Everybody in attendance, I'm sure, everybody watching was salivating at the thought of how this match was going to go. And it started off in amazing form. The match was incredible, but then it went to this time limit finish. A very unexpected thing, because for me as well, in that moment, both men were outside of the ring, so I thought it was a double count out at first. Then we saw it was a time limit finish. Santino Marella then comes out. Crowd, of course, reacted the way that the crowd reacted, upset. The match was incredible up until that point. So, of course, the fans were upset. Santino Marella comes out, says this match has to continue. I think he had, was it an extra 5 minutes or something like that? So the boys went at it again. But a minute later, the lights go off. And in this day and age, the lights going off, it's not The Undertaker. It's not Bray Wyatt. This day and age, it's Dark State. Dark State come out and attack both men. The crowd reaction was incredible. Boos here, there, and everywhere. My question to you, first of all, give me your review of the match before all the madness. But then my question to you is, was that the right thing to do?
The match itself, man, there was an era where it felt like there were nothing but dream matches. And then we kind of got to the end of that where it was like, well, we've seen just about all we want to see. And, the only dream match that really was left, we would never see. And that's Sting and The Undertaker. So there are no more dream matches. And then a new crop of wrestlers show up. And all of a sudden we start going, And really, you look at these two, this is classic. As a matter of fact, when we first got word of the TNA NXT partnership, this is one of the matches we talked about. And it just seemed like it was so far off, but it would be so perfect. And so to be on TNA's biggest stage for TNA's signature championship, the X Division title, man, it's phenomenal. And these two guys lived up to the billing. I mean, sometimes what can happen is when we anticipate something so much, it makes it much easier for it not to deliver. Because all you need to do is just have a slightly off night. And it's just not what we think. I mean, I think a couple of WrestleManias ago, I think it was 40, where it was Jimmy versus Jey Uso, right? Like everybody thought the brother versus brother match, it had the perfect buildup, the perfect montage, all of the right things. And then the match happened and it was like, not the case here. This one was everything we wanted. Just all of the high flying moves, all of the creativity. And I personally like about this is the fact that it is two young black men. You know, if you think about it, growing up, you know, you didn't get to see very many black wrestlers, let alone have dream matches that involve black wrestlers. Like that just wasn't a thing, let alone for them to be at this stage of their career. It's beautiful to see. So whether it was a couple of weeks ago where you had Leon Slater and Myron Reed main eventing a TNA pay-per-view, or this match most anticipated for Bound for Glory, man, it's a great moment for the company and for pro wrestling in general. So the match itself, what these two guys did, you can't ask for anything more except for
for it to actually finish. And here's the thing: when you talk about the dream matches, the two young black men growing up in, you know, watching wrestling and all the rest of it, we eventually saw some, you know, dream matches between black wrestlers, i.e. The Rock and Booker T, for example.
Yes.
And there were a couple of us, you know, the Farouk, The Rock, you know, people like that. Mark Henry eventually, MVP when he was in certain matches, all that kind of stuff. But at no point, this might actually be the first time that I can say I've seen it be two young black men. It's the age that makes a difference here. And the only time that ever happened before was if you were in tune with what's happening on the indies.
Right.
So the likes of Ricochet, Leo Rush, you know, I mean, even a Myron Reed, and you know, guys like that as well.
Yeah.
So this was completely different. And to add even more so for me personally, Leon Slater being from the UK.
For sure.
That
massive.
There was no such thing as a UK black talent on main TV, especially holding a championship in front of big crowds like that and all the rest of it. So we've got that. The match was phenomenal. I think it exceeded expectations, if I'm honest. I love with both guys, as much as they are high flyers and there's so many comparisons with their age and how long they've been doing it and all these kinds of things and you know, the future aspirations and all the rest of it, their styles are still very different.
Yes.
Leon Slater has this scrappy style but it's actually what works. It's so scrappy, but it looks so good. His selling is incredible. But then you've got Javon Evans, whose style is a lot more technically sound. Everything he does, he just, you know, when he floats through the air and all these kinds of things, it's amazing. So the clash of those two things was incredible. Let's get to this finish. The you know, the time limit finish. Okay, cool. For me, I kind of liked it because I knew it was going to get a reaction. I knew someone was going to come out and the match was going to continue. It adds even more to the spectacle of the match itself. It was brilliant. But then Dark State comes out. What are your thoughts on that part of the booking?
Well, my thought is this. What it does is it creates a scenario where, number one, we want to see the match again. Number two, and I think this is equally important to number one, we learned something a couple of weeks ago that none of us ever considered. And that is, we might actually like the tag team of Leon Slater and Javon Evans more than the match itself. So if this is setting us up for that, I'm perfectly fine with it. Because here's the tough part. Who should win between Javon Evans and, you know, that's the hard part. You know, like, it's not like you go into this saying, man, Leon Slater should come out as the winner. There's the argument that could be made that perhaps Javon Evans should have come out as the winner. There's a case to be made for either one. What this did was it told us, number one, they're equally just as good by going to that time limit draw. Number two, it tells us we might want the tag team more than the match itself. And so if this is setting us up for a tag team scenario, because we loved what we saw with Leon Slater and Javon Evans as a team, man, listen, it's very rare that two single stars team up and on their first time out, we're like, we need more of that immediately. Usually it's just, okay, we're filling a spot right now. No, these two look like they belong together as a tag team. So for me, I'm not mad about it because to me, the bigger picture is we get to see them run it back against Dark State. And I'm okay with that.
And for me as well, like my first reaction straight away was, oh, what are we doing? Why are we not having an ending to the match? But then, of course, the bigger picture is we get to see the match again at some point.
Yes.
But I completely forgot about this tag team thing because what it does, and like you said about who should have won, what it does is it sets us up to see action with the two of them. But then we can long out the anticipation of another match between them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be, a match in at the next PLE in a month or in a few weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
It could be this time next year. And I don't think we'd even be upset if we have this tag team thing that runs for however long it does. And that's going to be on TNA. It's going to be on NXT. They could possibly, very likely face the Hardys. There's going to be other tag teams that they face. They could become NXT tag team champions.
Yeah. Yeah.
TNA tag team champions. Both.
This scenario reminds me, and I think people, this will show you how short the wrestling fans' memory is. The Raw After Mania this year, impromptu, we get Io Sky versus Stephanie Vaquer. Holy cow, right? And then the match ends in a no contest because of interference. A couple of months later, we get them to run it back. Again, it ends because of interference. The next time they battle, it's for the vacated Women's World Championship.
Right.
So I think we have to look at the larger picture here. That match is money, no doubt. So if we put it on TNA's biggest stage and we don't have a resolution, maybe we get it on NXT's biggest stage at Stand and Deliver in April. Right? I mean, like, raise the stakes. I mean, you've got all kinds of opportunities. And who knows what we're looking at by then. We could have it where he's still the X Division champion and Javon Evans wins that title. Javon Evans could be the North American champion by then. All kinds of options can happen between now and April. So I think, again, we've watched this play out before on the women's side. Now we're seeing it play out on the men's side involving TNA and NXT. I think let's just see what happens. I get it. I know people were probably upset because of the Call Your Gauntlet match and how that ended. And now, okay, what are we doing? Well, I do think there's a larger picture at play here. And so I'm here to watch it unfold because, again, what we really want, we've seen the match and the match was fantastic. But that tag team, you're going to print money. The merch you're going to make off that tag team, like it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So, yeah, that's where I'm standing on that.
The young OG and the youngest in charge.
Exactly.
The possibilities are crazy. And I think that's what it is. The whole finish and the way it was booked, it opens up so many more options than if we had a clean finish between the two.
Yeah.
Like,
just think about it. If Javon Evans had lost, we would have now said he's lost another title match. Can he actually win the big one? Right? We can't say that now because we don't know. So I think this was the best way to honestly protect both of them, to elongate what can happen between them, and to put us in a space of anticipation. We want to see it again.
And the other thing that I thought almost straight away as well is the possibility or the matches that could happen, the singles matches that could happen with Javon Evans or Leon Slater against Saquon Sugars.
Yeah.
Even that alone. Right. Even that alone, whether it be X Division, whether it just be, just a grudge match, whatever it is, even that alone is exciting as well. So as I said, it opens up so many different options. And I understand, the upset of not having a finish. But I will say this as well. As long as I have anticipated this match, and as soon as this whole TNA thing, TNA NXT partnership kind of happened, even before it was the official thing, the first thing I did, that was one of the matches that I put out there. That's the one match that I want to see. Yeah. But for me, with the way it kind of came about, was not random, but kind of just came out of nowhere in a sense. We didn't build towards it. It was kind of just, you know, Javon came out of nowhere, challenged Javon and challenged Leon Slater, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. But at the same time, I'm looking at it thinking, I wish this was built a little bit bigger and da-da-da-da. So it kind of felt as though it was kind of almost too early to have the match. So then now, if we add all of this other stuff, we have the tag team, we have a longer grudge match, we have this stuff with Dark State. When we get to, and maybe it will be April, it might be a little bit earlier, but it is April at Stand and Deliver. We get them one-on-one again. Yeah. And there's going to be a finish. Yeah. It'll mean something. It's going to be phenomenal. So when you stop and think about the bigger picture, the booking actually makes sense. It does. Because here's the thing as well. It was mentioned on commentary when Dark State came out and attacked them, that obviously, you know, Dark State probably feel upset, frustrated at losing the tag team championships. But you've got to think, if they interfered in the Dudley's Hardys match, that wouldn't have made any sense, especially in terms of the bigger picture, because it was the Dudley's last match. There's no bigger picture from that, you know, and it doesn't mean Dark State can't do something again to the Hardys in the future, in the near future. I'm sure that probably will happen, but for it to happen in that match just wouldn't have been right at all. It was that match meant way too much for it to not have a finish, or for it to have an interference of that type, you know what I mean, during the match. So it made a hell of more sense. It gives us more options. There's so many things that could happen. And I'm excited to see what happens. And again, we've said it here. We love Dark State. And everything that they're doing and everything that they've done just makes sense. Everything just clicks. Everything's going correctly. They could have easily been one of those, you know, factions that kind of come in, do their madness, and then you kind of like, what are you doing here? Not with these guys. You know, again, I mentioned Saquon Sugars, Dion Lennox. I'm a massive fan of Dion Lennox. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. And the other two, you know, they have their place. There's probably a little bit more they need to work on, maybe, but you know what I mean? As a unit, it just works. It just works. And I'm excited to see what happens with them as well. It's going to be crazy. Talking about the Hardys, the Dudleys, of course, we saw them in the tables match. My God. And of course, the Hardys came out on top, you know, kind of cementing themselves as the greatest tag team, or that's what it kind of was. But no one really needs to make an argument between the two. You know, you can choose either one. It doesn't matter. It's all good. But the match was phenomenal. It felt as though it was from 20 years ago. You know, Jeff doing his madness. You know, Devon being back in the ring after so long as well. And let me say this, and I always make sure whenever this man's name is mentioned, I have to say this every single time. For me, he is the most underrated and maybe underappreciated black wrestler of all time. Because this man, whenever we talk about great black wrestlers, his name never seems to be mentioned. Wow. That's why I say it. That's why I say it. But yet he is part of the greatest tag team of all time. Why would you not mention his name? Wow. The things that he's done, all of that. We'll talk about Mark Henry, of course. We'll talk about The Rock, of course, Booker T, Adilo Brown, and so many others, a Junkyard Dog, MVP, Ron Simmons. But this man's accolades, longevity, consistency, and all the rest of it are just as, if not arguably, better than most of the guys that come to mind straight away. But he isn't one of the ones that we talk about straight away.
I think part of the reason for that, and not justifying it, but as I think about it, with everyone you mentioned had a significant solo run.
Of course.
And
that's exactly
Devon, and Devon, you know, the only real solo run he had was, you know, as the Reverend Devon, you know, or Deacon Devon, depending upon your perspective. And that didn't last. That didn't last long. I mean, unfortunately, the greatest thing it gave us, and I say unfortunately because the greatest thing it gave us had nothing to do with Devon. It was Batista. That's what it gave us. And so you have made me really rethink that, because to your
Mm,
point,
mm,
whenever we think about great Black wrestlers, male or female, it's
hmm.
because of their solo run. We don't
Correct.
think of it in a tag team scenario. Harlem Heat, of course, gets mentioned because both members are are Black, but then you
Mhm.
have, again, the significant solo career of Booker, and many would
Of
consider
course.
Booker to be greater than Stevie Ray.
Of course.
So that's a very, and I guess the other reason why is because Bubba Ray had a successful solo run as a world
Correct.
champion
Correct.
in TNA,
Correct.
and
Correct.
Devon did not. So
Correct.
that's a very, we need more time on that one. I want to unpack that.
Mm,
I want to
mm.
unpack that because yeah, we gotta that's yeah, table that
And
one. We gotta come
no,
back to that for sure.
and here's the thing: it is the reason why, and
Wow.
the reason why, and I think we just do this naturally as people, as humans, especially when we're kind of doing this whole, um, this whole wrestling thing, is
Mhm.
because of the solo run that never was really a big
Sure,
success, or that didn't stand
sure.
out.
Mhm,
He was a two-time King of the Mountain in TNA, so he
mhm,
did win singles championships. But again,
mhm.
it's not out of this world. It's not in your face. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
at the same time, simply because of what he did in the tag team, for me, that should be enough. But
yeah.
again, it's exactly why it gets overlooked, which does make sense. But it's an unfortunate thing that it
Sure,
happens the way it does.
sure.
Um, so yeah, there's all of that. The nice thing about the match, of course, was the ending. Of course, we had the Matt Death defying Jeff Hardy coming off a 25-foot ladder,
Mhm.
almost killing himself as always.
Right.
Jeez, wow. But then, of course, the ending was Bubba Ray kind of like nodding his head, admitting to defeat, being double chokeslam through the table. But then the send off
Mm,
was the boys unlacing their boots,
mm,
and handing them to the Hardys, and it's always quite weird, or not as common, or very uncommon. That's the word I was looking for. Uncommon for that to happen in the middle of the ring and boots be handed. We don't see that this day and age. I'm sure it was something that used to happen all the time back in the day. But if people do that, it's usually just them on their own in the ring. They
mhm.
place the boots in the middle of the ring, they leave, and that's the end of it. To hand the boots to another person or another team, but then that team also being from that same era that you were, because it's usually a passing of the torch to a younger star.
Mhm.
So it was like, it added to the Hardys in the sense of they still have a run to go. They're still going.
Mhm.
There were so many emotions in all of that, so many significant things in all of that, and you could see how emotional it was for the Dudleys as well.
Mhm.
As they left, they put on their good socks. They had to put on their
Mhm.
good socks
Yeah.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and as they made their way out, walked down the aisle and said bye to the people and stuff like that. Like, it was very significant, very
Mhm.
emotional. And
Mhm.
both teams had their moment at that same time.
Yeah.
So that was a beautiful thing. That was
Yeah.
that was a massive thing. Moving on, I'm going to mention this one very quickly. Kalani Jordan, of course,
Mhm.
retained
Mhm.
the Knockouts World Championship as well against Indy Hartwell.
Mhm.
Not one of the best matches that she's had, but still, it was a good show. It was a good showing, and of course, she retains, adding another win to her run as the X Division TNA Knockouts World Champion.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, the final thing from Bound for Glory, the main event, of course, Trick Williams versus Mike Santana. I think we all knew
Mhm.
of the finish, or what we expected, or what we thought should have been the finish,
Mhm.
was Mike Santana, of course, eventually beating Trick Williams. My question to you, Gerard, is: do you think that was the right call? Could it have possibly gone any other way? And what then is the next step for Trick Williams?
Was it the right call? I'm gonna say that's a tricky situation.
Mm,
And here's why I say that. On one hand, many believed that Slammiversary should have been the night that Mike Santana won the X Division. Here we go with that again. The TNA World Championship. Because he was in New York, being from New York, the hometown crowd, et cetera, et cetera. It looked like TNA decided to wait for their actual biggest show of the year versus their second biggest show of the year. And so that's why they pulled the trigger there. Why I say it's tricky, because on one hand, you can't keep stringing Mike Santana along like this. Right. I mean, he has clearly become the de facto leader of the men's locker room in TNA. And I don't quite know how this happened. Here's what I mean. When we came into the year, the guy was Joe Hendry. Yes. He had won the world title finally. Everybody was saying his name and he was appearing, and it was just, it was a thing. He shows up in NXT, he does the whole WrestleMania appearance as the TNA world champion. I mean, he was the flag bearer. Somewhere in there that shifted to Mike Santana. Joe Hendry doesn't seem to have the same juice that he once had. And it just doesn't hit the same. I don't know what happened. So they kind of had to do this. But here's why I say it's tricky, because I actually think that Trick Williams still had a lot left as a TNA world champion. So that's why this is tricky. I feel like this was one of Trick's best matches. His matches since becoming TNA world champion have just gotten better and better and better. He has really embraced his role as a heel, which is different for him, considering he rose to popularity in a different way. Being the heel without a mellow has been successful for Trick. The way he has antagonized TNA, wearing the championship upside down, having the lawyers there, calling it Trickin' A. Like, he's been doing all of these things to make it his own thing. So I think where it's tricky is it was a catch-22. Either decision that they made would have been both cheered and frowned upon, right? Because had they gone with Trick Williams, I still believe Trick has a lot left in the tank. It would have made even more sense as, considering that the men's team for TNA won at Showdown this past week, which so much has gone on. We haven't even talked about Showdown yet, which is crazy. Right. So Trick winning would have still held that stronghold onto TNA. At the same time, Mike Santana was clearly the leader of Team TNA. And on top of that, he's been the leader of the locker room there. He's the sentimental favorite. His daughter was there. I mean, so it's a catch-22. I think whichever decision they made would have had support and challenge. But with that said, man, it was Mike Santana's night. I can't even knock that. Congratulations to him. Right.
And for me, I think it was the better move. I think it was always going to be the better move to do that. I think it probably would have been more damaging if Trick retained, and that's not because of the wrestlers. It's more so a reaction thing. It's more so, Trick has been champion for a very long time. We've been building Mike Santana for quite a while. Of course, it could have easily have happened at Slammiversary. They've decided to long it out. I think if they then decided not to, it's you would then start thinking, I'm sure Mike Santana himself would then start be thinking, okay, so when is this actually going to happen? Like, what do I need to do? What's gone wrong here? To go back to, Mike Santana becoming the leader of the locker room, I would say, I'll put it like this. For me, I think, Mike Santana is clearly more relatable to the fans than a Joe Hendry. Yeah. You can argue Mike Santana just has a better, is more entertaining in the ring than a Joe Hendry. Not to say that Joe Hendry can't wrestle, but I think on a whole, he's more entertaining than a Joe Hendry. And I find it interesting. And I think this is the other thing as well. With Joe Hendry's popularity and his appearances, he was the one that kind of, spearheaded the TNA NXT crossover thing. Then he did the Royal Rumble appearance. it's felt as though he's on his way out, or it's kind of almost going to happen at some point. So they needed to build up someone else to be, you know, the main face of TNA.
Yeah.
And Mike Santana just made a whole lot of sense. They could have chosen a few of us easily, but I think Santana was a very good choice.
Yeah.
He's kind of almost like, and I think we've said this on the show before, he's kind of like a more clean cut or more sustained version of a Jey Uso.
Okay, I can see that.
In terms of being relatable from the crowd, you know, just people just love him and stuff like that. But I would have, me personally, if we swapped roles, I could have easily put a Mike Santana right now in the WWE World Title picture and feel a lot more confident with him than a Jey Uso.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow. It feels like there's another Jey Uso conversation to be had as well.
Oh, there is. There is.
This, I don't want to get us too sidetracked, but just looking at this year with a Jey, it's a very interesting comparison. A Mike Santana versus a Jey Uso. You know, it makes me wonder. This is tough. I was going to ask, did Jey Uso peak too soon? But I think that's the wrong question. That's the wrong question. The question is, can Jey Uso really handle being the guy? That's the real question, because he had to win the Royal Rumble this year. We finally got an underdog on their way to a world title.
True.
He wins the world title. I mean, my thought is they did everything right by Jey Uso.
Of course, I think they did too.
They did everything right by Jey Uso. You know, there are those who are saying right now, man, Jey Uso going back to the tag team is crazy. I see something else happening. There's a heel turn happening right in front of our eyes with Jey Uso, which to me is a wild move considering how popular he is and that his merch is still selling like crazy and his entrance is still one of the best things in WWE. But I think, you know, if you make the comparison between a Mike Santana and a Jey Uso, the comparison is, it appears, now we'll only know this as we go throughout the next few months of Santana's reign, but it certainly appears that Mike Santana is more ready to be the guy than Jey Uso.
Exactly.
And, you know, as much as we love the Jey Uso, you know, entrance and the yeet and all of the other things, can you be the guy? And that's the question. Can we send you to ESPN and you don't appear inebriated, right? Can we send you to these places and you feel comfortable talking and representing in that way? That I think is the Jey Uso question that most aren't ready to answer honestly. Honestly. So to that point, Mike Santana, wow. I would dare say, somebody's going to clip this. I already know. I would dare say Trick Williams is more ready to be the world champion than Jey Uso.
Yes, exactly. And that brings me on.
And he proved that.
Of course. It brings me on perfectly to my next point about the run that Trick has had and the decision to put Trick Williams in the position that you know, WWE NXT did. We talked about it before. Mex mentioned, I think it was Mex that first said it, about, you know, sending Trick Williams to a TNA instead of main roster, because it is the most perfect decision that they could have made. You think about the way he's progressed in his matches, his storytelling in a match, his technique in the ring, his confidence on the mic. He already had that. That's what kind of made him stand out. But at the same time, what it is now, the way he carries himself, the way, just everything that he's done in this TNA championship run, that would not. I don't care what booking and what, you know, whether they pushed him or not straight up, it would not have happened if he went to the main roster. I don't think
Yeah.
it would have happened. I don't think it
Yeah.
would have happened.
Not that same way. No.
Right. It gave him the space to become the man, but with a little less pressure than trying to become the man on the main roster, because he would have been, he would have been drowned out in some way. And that's not because of what he was lacking. He was lacking in a few things. We've said it so many times, but it would have been more to do with the number of other top stars that are there. The writers, decisions and booking other people, as well as then trying to book Trick Williams. We've seen so many casualties in that space. Carmelo Hayes being the main one we talk about quite often. So for Trick Williams to do what he did, for me now, and I think it's because of this, the simple fact that you've just said that Trick Williams is more ready to be a world champion than a Jey Uso is because of this run in TNA.
Yes.
Nobody, you would not be saying this if he went to the main roster, even if his main roster was decent or somewhat successful or even just better than Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
That conversation would not be happening. Now that he's done what he's done, he's been able to show himself, he's been able to build himself. He's had matches, with more seasoned wrestlers and all the rest of it, which has, helped him in so many ways. Now we're looking at him thinking, okay, now we are definitely ready to push this guy. And it doesn't mean we have to push him towards World Championship. I don't think we need to do that quickly. But the second he goes on that main roster, all eyes are on Trick. All eyes are on Trick in the best way possible. And I think this is what this whole TNA NXT partnership offers. I think they're doing a very similar thing with Kalani Jordan. I think this is how it's going to work out for Dark State. And there's been a few others. Javon Evans possibly as well. But he has the time to stay on NXT. He has the time to do the TNA thing as well, mainly because of his age. But with his experience, he was probably more ready than a Trick. Maybe a year ago, he was probably more ready than a Trick to be on main roster. But again, I think he'd be drowned out in some way. So, give people time, let them do what they're doing. TNA offers this extra time for NXT stars before they go on to anything main roster in WWE. And I think that's what makes the difference here. Saying what I've said kind of sadly moves me on to the next point. We saw a couple of days ago now a list of releases that happened in the WWE. The biggest name, of course, on that was the former North American champion, former two-time NXT Tag Team Champion, that is WES LEE. It's very interesting that last week we mentioned, or you yourself mentioned, that it's intriguing to see that WES LEE was not involved in this showdown show in any way, shape, or form. Wasn't mentioned. We didn't see him. All the rest of it, possibly because of what happened, 2 days ago. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? Because here's the other part of it as well. Usually, when we see the cuts, we hear, a day or two later that the reason is because of budgets and this, that, whatever. Whereas this is not the case this time around. I believe when there was a few cuts in regards to NXT stars, I think this was a very similar reason too. And it seems to be the new thing of people not developing or NXT or WWE not seeing them on the main roster. WES LEE, of all the over 11 or 12 cuts that happened, WES LEE was the only one close to, going to main roster. So what are your thoughts on that and his release with everything that's going on?
It's so interesting because there were 12 releases and the bulk of them, of course, were these developmental talent, and I put them, of course, in air quotes. Some of the names were part of the WWE ID program. Zeta Steele, Kylie Ray, who was the ironically the inaugural WWEID Women's Champion. You know, you had Zara Zakor, who again, like kind of a power lifter kind of situation. All of these stars you got to see on Evolve or on LFG, you know, Brandon BJ Ray, who I think that was probably long overdue, but you know, but some of the other LFG talent like Hayes Jamison, Summer Sorrell, both of them were on this season, and we spoke very highly about Hayes. You know, she's definitely got it. So it's very interesting to see that. You know, Stevie Turner is an interesting one because she was the commissioner over at Evolve, though again, you know, she's someone who we saw as part of NXT UK and the like. So understanding these names, some of them we had seen on TV, some of them we hadn't. To see WES LEE's name in there, who's really kind of the only veteran outside of, say, Stevie Turner, Kylie Ray, you could argue, you know, but being under the ID umbrella is what it is. The WES LEE thing is very interesting, and there's a part of me, and I don't know, so I'm merely pontificating. It kind of reminds me of when Nick Nemeth was released, where he had asked for his release. Part of me wonders if WES LEE was in that particular category for asking for his release. Certainly, the WES LEE that we have seen in the last year is nothing like the WES LEE that was the longest reigning, at one point, North American champion, the guy who had to give his championship up in the ring, and we thought he might never wrestle again. He made a great comeback, you know, and we were very much on the train of WES LEE. Obviously, there are thoughts, and I saw some of the tweets from some of the members of the Rascals that are saying, hey, we've got your seat warm. You know, he could easily go to TNA, as we've seen others do, Mara Sade most recently. So that certainly could happen where you have a reunion of the Rascals. I just think this is so interesting, though, just because of what we've seen WES LEE do over in NXT. You kind of hope, man, that he could get back to doing that instead of him kind of managing other talents and, you know, what he was doing with the High Rise and the like. I personally, I'd love to see WES LEE continue. I'd love to see him back in TNA with his brothers, and they run roughshod again, and they do what they do. But shocking release amid all of these names.
Let's have that real conversation about a WES LEE moving to the main roster, because I think even let's kind of almost take away this last year, because he's booking, him being, you know, turning heel. It's gonna play his part in the discussion too, actually. But you know, it was an argument from the start. It was something that we kind of frowned upon from the start. The second he became a heel, we were like, why? And for the first few months, it kind of worked. He had the whole thing with you know, his best friend Zachary Wentz as well, and what they did with that, and the shocking moments, and which kind of, you know, made it make sense. But since then, kind of nothing much. Didn't know what to do with him, I guess. It kind of, you know, fizzled out. But if we take a WES LEE from his amazing North American Championship run, and we put him on the main roster, even now, where does a WES LEE fit? And does WES LEE find success on the main roster going from his peak, his NXT peak?
I would see him on SmackDown. And I definitely could see him having a banger with Sami Zayn for that US title. That would be a thing. I think he very well could kind of fit in that role that currently nobody has, which is the diminutive underdog. That's what made Rey Mysterio so special. I think he could fall into that space, since, you know, you have Dragon Lee already over on Raw, and that'd probably be the closest to that over on Raw. So to have that spot available on SmackDown would be pretty amazing. I think the challenge when it comes to anybody going to the main roster is not so much an issue of in-ring performance, it's star power. And the stars of Raw and SmackDown are so bright that trying to penetrate that can be difficult. Now, this is not to go off on a tangent, but it is to say, when we talked last week about the PWI 500, and we noted that I believe it was 2 NXT stars, Obafemi and Trick Williams, that were in the top 20, and in the whole world, that says to me that NXT is sitting in the best position possible if they're sending somebody over to the main roster.
Right.
Like, 2-3 years ago, if you were going to the main roster, we hope that it would translate. These days, and great proof of that, when Javon Evans headed to SmackDown and his entrance plays, everybody's screaming, "That boy bouncy."
Yep.
So clearly, it's penetrating through to the main roster of viewers, which is massive when you consider that. It came over to TNA this weekend. So NXT is well positioned to be able to create main event, main roster stars. I think the people who they send have to be able to have the star power. So the question is, does Wes Lee have it? And would he be given permission to show it?
Right.
Because that's the other thing. Like we were able to feel Wes Lee's pain in NXT, and we love that. Could that happen on the main roster? I think it could. There are probably some places that you could put him in terms of opponents that would make it work. Obviously, I think The Miz would be part of that. But once you get into that mid card right now, it is pretty stacked there. I mean, you've got returning Aleister Black, who, has really just kind of made some really cool moves. You've got just a number of others that are there right now in that mid-card space that, again, the star power is so strong. Wes Lee would have really had to turn it up in terms of being visible, being vocal, for people to really be able to connect with him.
And I find it interesting, obviously, we can only go by what we've seen in the past. So it's not necessarily to compare Wes Lee to these people directly, but it's more so to, kind of try and make some kind of, educated assumption as to what could happen with a Wes Lee. We've seen in the past the likes of a Ricochet, who came into WWE NXT already with star power. And a reputation, a great reputation before moving to WWE. We've seen a Carmelo Hayes move to the main roster, who, most people would definitely say, would agree that has, more of a presence to them, more charisma than a Wes Lee. We've seen people that can do similar things to Wes Lee in terms of, in-ring ability, like an Apollo Crews, Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander, so many other people that have all these things that are similar to a Wes Lee, but it just didn't work, or in Carmelo's situation hasn't yet played out in the way that we want it to. That have kind of gone under the radar or disappeared or weren't pushed the way that we probably wanted them to be. And, the star power thing just didn't quite work out for them. And that has always been my fear with Wes Lee. It felt comfortable in being in NXT, and it worked, and it was perfect. The type of people he was facing, the competition that he had at the time, everyone's kind of on a same kind of wavelength. So when Wes Lee overcomes them, it feels great. It feels correct and all the rest of it. A Wes Lee on the main roster, I've never really been able to kind of put him in a place where I'm thinking, okay, he's going to do great.
Right.
And that's, again, it's got nothing to do with his ability in the ring, because matches wise, you're going to get bangers every time, single time without fail.
Absolutely.
And that's what made him great in NXT.
Yeah.
But then we know the main roster isn't simply about the matches. It's everything else. It's about fitting him in. It's about making him, being visible on TV enough for people to eventually care or get behind him and stuff like that. And I just didn't see that happening. Do I think the release is justified? I'm still. It's still upsetting to see that he's been released. There could be many different factors behind the scenes that we don't know about. But I think as well, we've seen, even just this year alone, we've seen at least 3, even in just the last month, 3 people who have left WWE because their contract has ended, not because they were released or they've asked for the release and it was granted, and it was a mutual thing, and that's been put out there. It's been made known. I think by now, if that was the case with Wes Lee, I think we would have known that by now as well. That his contract has ended. So it was a release. Yeah. Well, again, there might be a thing where he's asked for it or he's, said something to someone and whatnot. Yeah. His best option is TNA. I wouldn't want to see him in AEW. I can't lie. I don't think I would, as much as worked out for Ricochet, for sure. Right. But I think his best place would be to find himself back in a place of comfortability and not trying to fight his way through again. Yeah. So TNA would make a lot more sense. The release is difficult to handle because if it was kind of a number of other people who we've seen on NXT recently or who's had success in NXT and the like, then it would have made more sense. Rich Holland is another one who is, I think, he's left or going to, but that's down to contract it's and not being offered a new one. Yeah. So it's a tough one to call. It's upsetting. One of my favorite guys is Wes Lee. But at the same time, it's kind of like looking in the future. Where else would he go from NXT? And that's what kind of helps. The scenario. I don't see where he would have went after NXT or whether he would have been successful after NXT. So maybe a TNA probably makes more sense. It's so difficult to call, and it's very unfortunate as well to see it happen in the way that it has. I feel as though I think Booker T said this the other day about all the releases. It's kind of it's part of the business. We can't get away from it. There's going to be casualties that were unexpected, and we don't know how to take it. But it is just what it is. Yeah. Rough with the smooth, and I'm glad he has some kind of legacy and history with NXT that we can look back on. But we'll see what happens. We've seen other people make success. Swerve is the biggest one. Ricochet's making moves and changing things around for himself in AEW. So hopefully we'll see something different or something special coming from Wes Lee, given all that's been happening. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, it definitely is. And to your point, we wish him all the best for sure. And you're right. It's not like it doesn't feel like a career that was gone before we could see all the. I mean, the only other thing he had left to do was to win the NXT championship. I mean, that was really it, because again, unless he found himself part of a cool tag team like Fraxium, to be able to impact the main roster, I don't see that he would have done it, So, yeah. So shout out to him.
Here's a question, actually, before we come off this. Here's a question. We mentioned so many other people, Ricochet, I mentioned Apollo Crews, Carmelo Hayes. We see that, people of that kind of caliber in terms of what they can do, they're known for more so their in-ring ability as opposed to maybe their charisma or maybe their mic skills or, natural star power or whatever it is. I always feel as though, and I'm kind of almost seeing this with Penta, with Ray Phoenix, with Dragon Lee, these high-flying guys and whatnot. It's almost like there's only space for one of them. Do you feel as though, in terms of time, and this is a timing thing, in terms of timing, when Wes Lee kind of became heel, kind of things weren't quite working out. Then Javon Evans comes along.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel as though that maybe could have had some type of impact in terms of how they used Wes Lee, how they've used Wes Lee in the last year?
I don't think I would credit that to the presence of Javon Evans. I think when you start talking about like you know, a character type with the acrobatic high flyer being that type, I think we see just kind of a limited presentation of that on the main roster versus NXT. NXT has always been a bit more open to have multiple presentations of said character. So, in this case, obviously you have Javon Evans, you also, prior to that, I mean, we had Axiom, we had Nathan Frazier, we had a number of different guys who were all there at the same time. I think one of the things that WWE does really well is figures out, okay, how can we position these people so that nobody loses because everybody looks the same? So if everybody's doing a Spanish fly, then nobody should be doing a Spanish fly. Like, it's
right.
So I don't know. I honestly think that what really changed the fortune for Wes Lee was the heel turn. I think that's what did it, and I think that was a result of, and this shows the domino effect of pro wrestling. The Wes Lee heel turn ends up, I believe, being his undoing, but the heel turn is necessary to add some sort of opposition potentially for Trick Williams as an NXT champion, because there really were very few male competitors for a Trick Williams to battle. And if we're honest, we're still looking at a small handful of opposition for an NXT champion. Now you insert Ricky Saints, but there's still those questions of who's the guy. So I think that had much more of an impact on his career than the presence of an additional high flyer, because what ultimately happened was the strength of Wes Lee wasn't just his moveset. It was our ability to connect to him as an underdog. We can't connect to you as an underdog if you've turned on your friends.
Right.
So now that we've lost that level of connection and you don't look to bring that back to us, and then because you can't really be an angry high flyer, you have to add more of a ground game. I mean, look at Ricochet. Ricochet doesn't do half the stuff he used to do before. And his finisher is actually a ground move. It's not his 450 or 630 or whatever it was. Not more. So I think what undid Wes Lee was the heel turn, and the heel turn was necessary because there were so few opponents for a Trick Williams, Obafemi men's roster in NXT, and this shows the real domino effect of what happens when you have an area of lack in a roster. It's not just the one thing. There's a domino effect, and a lot of people get impacted.
It's just crazy how, as you said, the heel turn was necessary at the time, but then over time it became his undoing. And I think that is also what the likes of a Booker T is saying as well when he talks about the nature of the business. For some people it works out, for some people it just doesn't, and it's not always down to their ability, their character. It really can just be, timing, booking, stuff like that. People coming in at a certain time, people coming out at a certain time. What the main roster looks like at the time where we feel as though so and so is ready to go onto it and stuff like that. And this is why, going back to Trick Williams, is the timing of the NXT TNA partnership works out perfectly for him. Because again, going back to what I was saying, if we put a Trick Williams on the main roster at the start of this year, for me, I don't see how it would have worked out in the way that we would want it to work out, or as special as, or you know what I mean, or it could have easily gone a different way. Whereas now, if you put him on the main roster, there's a lot more, for me, there's a lot more confidence in what can happen with him than this time last year. So again, it is the nature of the beast, and the timing and all the rest of it. It's just interesting that this is just the way things play out. Very, very interesting indeed. Gosh, what was the other thing we were going to talk about? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, we got a couple of things. Street Profits. We talked about this last week. The Street Profits having a tag team title match against the Wyatt Six felt like a must-win situation. I still feel like it was a must-win situation. I spent that evening watching that show, just waiting for the turn.
For something.
We didn't get it. Something. It was just, I just was like, as a matter of fact, what made it even worse is not only was there not a turn, but then it was immediately overshadowed by the presence of MFT. And it was like, so we're just going to wipe these guys out and move straight away to a new feud. So man, the Street Profits are not up. We no longer want the smoke. You know, we want y'all to just go ahead and go your own way, and figure out what that looks like. Because right now, you getting another tag team title shot doesn't mean much. You've already had multiple shots this year. You won the titles this year. You lost the titles this year. You've lost now 2 different rematches against the same team. And you lost them in international spaces. So let's recover this. Let's just, you know, you've done almost 10 years as a tag team. There's a lot to be said for that. You've won every championship the WWE has to offer. Pursue your solo career, because at this point, we have, you know, there's a time for everything, and the timing for the Street Profits thing is over. It's over.
It's a tough one when you put it the way that you have, in terms of them losing 2 matches, or the 2 rematches, international soil as well. There's a small positive of, you know, the Street Profits bringing, you know, joy to any crowd anywhere they are over. I don't think that can be denied in any way, regardless of their booking or how bad it's been or inconsistent and all the rest of it. That will always happen, where the crowd will get excited to see them. And I think that's a massive reason why we see them on international soil, and we have, you know, the last 2 events that they've had. But it's also very clear, and we've seen it. Gosh, we've talked about it for over the last 3 years, maybe, on this show, about how the writers just don't know what to do with them, how to book them. And I don't understand why it's so difficult. That's the part for me that I'm trying to make some kind of sense of. Why is it difficult to push them? There was no difficulty with the New Day, for example. There was no difficulty even with the Usos. And I think the Usos are a closer comparison to the Street Profits than the New Day, because the New Day kind of created their own success success with their own charisma and given the time to do whatever. Whereas the Usos were kind of put in that place and made it work for them. And I think the Street Profits could easily do the exact same thing, but for whatever reason, they're not being put in that space enough over the last 5 years. It's been so inconsistent. I need to get my head around as to why. So this isn't even a case of should they go their separate ways or whatever else. It's just what's missing. What do you think for the writers or for the booking, or is missing with the Street Profits, or is it something missing with the writers?
I am wondering, is this an issue with the writers, or is it an issue with the Street Profits themselves? I think what's interesting about your mention of the New Day and your mention of the Usos is the I feel, and I will agree with your point, that the New Day really fought for and carved their own success. So, you know, when they weren't finding success in the ring, you know, they had the Bootios going on. They had, you know, their separate podcast, you know, whether it was the New Day podcast or Up, Up, Down, Down, right? They were finding themselves in so many different places where the people were. You look at the Usos. I think the Usos, particularly Jay, they are a case of, we're going to write your way into the main event. And they did it in such a way where we cared more about Jay than Jimmy. And that wasn't the case inside of the tag team.
Not at all. Not at all.
But the Jay Uso problem, which we alluded to earlier, and it's funny that we're back to it, is they wrote out the story for him. He wasn't prepared to deliver. And I think that's the part of the equation. You know, we would have only known that, you know, from Unreal. But even if you look at how he carries himself, I don't think he really believes that he can be the world champion. And I'll make another very salient point here, and that is we cared about Jey Uso, obviously from the pandemic. His involvement with the bloodline, his war with Roman Reigns caused us to care. He leaves the bloodline, again, the connection to Roman Reigns. He starts this solo career. We love him. We think he's great. We're yeeting with him, all the things around the world. Make him the world champion. You do all the things, and he loses the world championship in about 6 weeks. Then he doesn't get a solo rematch. He loses again. He lost again last week. Via pinfall, you know, and the only way we care about Jey Uso is again because of Roman Reigns. So I think Jey Uso is the picture of, hey, we wrote it out for him. The Usos are the picture of, the New Day are the picture of, hey, we did it on our own, basically, right? The Usos is the picture of, hey, the writing was great, but we couldn't carry it out. So when you look at the Street Profits, the question is, which case do they look more like? Do they look more like the Usos making and creating their own scenario? Excuse me, the New Day, I'm sorry. Or do they look like the Usos where the writing was great and they just couldn't carry it out? I don't see the consistency of the New Day in the Street Profits. Here's my case in point. You know, when they weren't getting promos done, you know, every now and again, you'd see this carefully cinematic produced promo that would come every now and again from, you know, from Montez Ford. But that's 2 or 3 times in the last year. There's not the consistent presence of, hey, we want to be stars, so we're going to do our own thing. I don't see that in either of them. So that lends it to me believing that this might be more of an issue of, do they know what they want? Not do the writers know what to do with them? Because I can see why it would be difficult for the writers to write for them if you write for them and they're still not going to come through with it. I don't see the kind of drive. I think we want the solo career for Montez Ford right now more than he wants it for himself. I think he wanted it more a few years ago. I don't think he wants it as much now, you know. And in terms of Angelo Dawkins has made improvements for sure. And Dawkins could go solo and we would care. I don't know if Dawkins right now is at the point where he cares enough to say, I want to be a solo star, put me in, coach.
I think with that said, and I agree with everything that you just said, I think with the whole thing of them, it's not so much them not wanting it. I would think, if I'm putting myself in their position, either one of them, I would be thinking, I'm not confident in it. I'm not confident that it's going to be what it needs to be, or I'm not confident it's going to go the way it's going to go. I'm not confident that they're going to give me something that I feel I can run with, or it's going to be consistent, or it's going to have enough longevity. or it's going to take me to a place where I feel I can go. Because it's one thing to have the tools, but it's a different thing to have the opportunity. You know what I mean? You can give me you can give me all the tools, but if you don't give me the work, there's no point in me having tools. So I think it's more of a question or a conversation of confidence more than wanting it or a drive. I'm sure the drive is there, but the drive can get knocked by a lack of confidence. So I feel that that's what it is, definitely. Again, over the last 3-4 years or however long it's been, it's easy to think that their confidence is knocked. But then confidence can be knocked again because they were given the tag team titles. That okay, let's go. But then it's taken away so quickly. What do I do now? Or what does this mean? What they're gonna do with us? And again, with this whole thing of the breakup talk and whatnot, like the way it played out on TV, the breakup talk kind of happened out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Then it's disappeared again 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Then we get no kind of answer in the match after we built it. After we built the talk and, it's win or lose. It's that kind of situation. And then they start another feud with a different team. All well and good, they start a new feud with a different team. That's fine, no problem. But it's after we've not got any answer or even an indication as to what's happening with the Street Profits after they've lost again. Yeah. So I can see exactly why it would knock their confidence and they're a little bit confused as to what's going on. We just need some kind of answer, some kind of definitive markers and things like that to move forward. And it's crazy how we're having the same talk in the same way that we did when Lashley and the Profits were together. We were saying exactly the same thing, almost word for word. We need some kind of definitive, at the time it was the name and then it was the booking and then it was the direction. And I think we're back in the same place. We're back in exactly the same place. It's such a difficult thing. But I think for me, the answer would be we push towards the Montez Ford solo run. And it's almost like that's the only thing left. That's why I say, But in terms of the timing, no. In terms of timing, and I don't think so, because I don't think it would be definitive. I don't think it would be pushed confidently by writers, booking, all the rest of it. But in terms of ticking boxes, that is the only thing left.
Wow. Well, you mentioned we've mentioned the New Day twice on this show, right. And it does bear mentioning a very interesting fact that came out last week on Stephanie McMahon's podcast, where she had Big E on there, and she asked basically about his in-ring future. And he went on to basically say his in-ring career is over. And it's the first time that we've heard him actually say that. Yeah. So what are your thoughts now on the official ending of the career of Big E?
I'm not overly surprised. It is a little upsetting. Well, not a little, it's very upsetting that's where we've ended up. I feel as though for a long time, not that he necessarily knew, but there was a more of a percentage, there was a high percentage that we were going to get to this than we were going to get to an in-ring return. He's had to, wait and try and find some kind of way to return, which makes sense, which I'm sure obviously you wanted to do. Obviously, this whole thing has happened out of nowhere and unexpected and untimely. But I think, we had that one chance. Well, I think there was multiple chances, actually. There was multiple times, actually, where we were expecting or we've seen some kind of build-up to a return. We know of, or it was reported, should I say, of discussions of when it was going to happen. They were building it at a SummerSlam. They were building it at a WrestleMania. They were building it at a so-and-so. And it just didn't work out. So I think what this does, and I think with anything, whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, or something you want to do or don't want to do, it adds a definition to what the future looks like.
Yeah.
It means that, okay, in-ring career is over. What do I do next? I mean, he's already started all the stuff that he's already been active in, doing the punditry stuff and doing the announcing at college football games and making appearances and talking at certain places. And, he's working on, the stuff that he's done with the animated shows and all of those kinds of things as well. It's not, luckily for him and very fortunately for him, he's in spaces where there are still so many things he can do and does do to bring a fulfillment as well. Not just passing time, as some people kind of end up doing sometimes when they don't get to do the thing that they want to do. So, thankfully he has that, and not many people have that, and that's a blessing for him indeed. But for him to have to come out and actually say those words and, actually say the in-ring thing is done, that must have taken a lot, because I can guarantee you the last 3 or 4 years he's been holding out from saying that as much as humanly possible.
I agree. Yeah, it's kind of it's a finality that many of us probably did not want. We all held out hope that he'd be able to make a comeback, and it really does make it sad to see how his career ended. I am glad though that he was able to be a Money in the Bank winner. He was able to win the WWE Championship, have a really cool reign, and still be a beloved member of what we love about WWE. And so, there are many wrestlers who have successfully transitioned into an announcing capacity. I mean, Corey Graves is doing it now. You can go back. Many loved Bobby the Brain Heenan, Roddy Piper, Gorilla Monsoon. Like there is a Taz currently over in AEW. Bryan Danielson. I mean, there are a ton of names in the announce booth who were first wrestlers, and it's much like in other sports. It's a way to extend their career in a commentary or an analyst kind of space. So with that said, congratulations to Big E for being able to move on with his career and be good with it, because a lot of people are not. And we've seen that over the years as well. They make, varying comebacks, and they have matches even when their bodies can't support them. So for him to be able to be in a good space like this is great. So congratulations to Big.
For sure. Here's a question actually. Do you see him doing the commentary thing? Ending up very similar to like a Booker T?
It's interesting because I think he certainly could. Yep. He certainly could. What he's doing though in these pre and post shows are legendary. And I think those moments give him the freedom to say some of the things that he likely could not say in a commentary space, because in the commentary space, you're locked into specifically talking about the match, talking about whatever bullet points they have for you to talk about. Here, he's able to give an opinion. And, I think about the ways in which he stood up for women's wrestling and things of that nature that he would not have had the opportunity to do in a commentary space in the way that he's done it. So I think this is one of those cases where multiple places in the announce/on-air space really does work. And for him, he's great in that analyst position. In the pre and post show. I think he's fantastic in that. He offers obviously a perspective from a pro wrestler. He also offers a perspective from a fan. And then he says a lot of the things that many of us feel, but we don't hear people in those spaces say. You aren't going to hear a Jackie Redmond say some of the stuff he says. You aren't going to hear, a Peter Rosenberg say those kinds of things. But you are, or a Kathy Kelly, but you are going to get to hear Big E say it. And that adds a degree of authenticity and relatability to that particular space that many others aren't able to do.
For sure, for sure. It's definitely a great space for him to be in. Again, as I said, you know, he's doing so many things that bring a fulfillment for him. And as you mentioned, the whole thing of, you know, he's standing for women's wrestling. He gets a chance to do that. And he is, it shows just the type of person that he is. He's willing to put himself out there and put his neck on the line, so to speak, you know, in that space as well. And he gets the opportunity to do that. And let's be real, who's going to stand up to him?
Oh,
you know what I mean? He's going to, you know what I mean? So he's got that going for himself. But yeah, that's you know, I guess, you know, in his new chapter already started, but we're now officially almost official confirmation of this new chapter now, and we are where we are. The final thing I wanted to do before we talk about what you want to talk about as well is give me your, just kind of do this quite quickly. Give me your rundown, your review of what went down last week on NXT Showdown. Obviously, we saw NXT versus TNA. We saw the two Survivor Series matches between the men's and the women's teams. We saw the tag team match. We saw everything kind of play out. We saw Mustafa Ali versus Ethan Page and all of those things. Give me your quick review of all of that and where some of the stuff could lead to moving forward in NXT.
Well, quickly, I predicted everything right except one match, which is wild. And that, of course, being the North American title match. I really thought Mustafa Ali was going to take that, but that ended up going to Ethan Page. But huge move for the Hardys, now being dual champions. And what a week they've had, winning the NXT championship, winning the House of Glory tag team championships, now retiring the Dudleys. I mean, that's a crazy 7-day period for anybody, let alone for the Hardys. So congratulations to them. The NXT team won for the Women's Survivor Series style match. I thought they had the stronger team. They definitely had some friction in there, which I think, you know, made a lot of sense, but they still walked away with the win. Still your NXT North American champion, Ethan Page. A great match.
It was a very good match. Very good match.
I don't know how they could have. I don't think it was planned for Mustafa Ali to get caught up in the cable there from Booker T. That was wild, and it just resulted obviously in a loss for Mustafa Ali. But a big win there for Ethan Page. And then the men's team, the TNA team won, and it ultimately was TNA won 2 matches, NXT won 2 matches. So I mean, you can't argue with that. Everybody, you kind of leave on an even playing field, even though it feels like TNA may have gotten the one up since they won a championship and they won the main event. So kudos to them. I'm very intrigued now that you have the TNA World Championship on the men's side back over in TNA. Kalani Jordan still your women's champion. What does all of this do now for the relationship between TNA and NXT? I guess we'll find out more about that potentially tonight.
And I think one of the very interesting things that we could see happen, probably even tonight, to be honest, is, you know, with the way that the men's team lost, it was kind of everything that we expected, with Trick Williams kind of walking out on the team. And of course, you know, I'm sure we're going to have some friction between Saints and Williams.
Oh, yeah.
In my mind, I'm kind of seeing it as, you know, it will all play out. The match will happen. Hopefully, it will be a way to kind of establish Saints as the champion by beating Trick Williams. And maybe that's Trick Williams then moving on. Yes. I kind of see that's what it's going to be with that. I feel as though Sol Ruka will be challenging JCJ. Okay. Very soon too. We'll see how it all plays out, but it's interesting. I will say this: the whole thing wasn't as exciting as I thought it was going to be. It felt as though something was missing. I'm not too sure what that is, but you know, as I was saying last week, I was expecting, you know, it to be a thing of, it kind of being exaggerated in terms of kind of setting up stories or continuing other stories and stuff like that. It did happen, but it was a lot more subtle in that respect, a lot more subtle. So it did its job. And it was, we know that the show was kind of quickly put together and all of these things, but I feel as though there were probably a few missed opportunities. We know that we're getting a Matt Cardona versus Josh Briggs, but even that kind of felt as though it was kind of, a bit more low key than it probably should have been or could have been. They're having their match tonight, of course, and we're going to see other matches play out as well tonight as well. But yeah, it kind of just felt as though it was just another week on NXT and not a big, massive thing that, because we've been, anticipating it for so long, it kind of felt it should have been a much bigger affair. But it wasn't. But again, at the same time, it did what it needed to do. And it continued stories, started new ones, feuds, and the like as well. So we'll see how that one plays out. With the few minutes that we have left, of course, we can talk about Arche, the next show. Of course, I'll leave that to you, my friend.
For sure. So Arche Wrestling presents its next show. It's called Close to Midnight. It is this Saturday night, and it's going to be really, really special. Of course, the main event sees Darius Carter defend the Arche Wrestling Men's Championship against Billy Dixon. And this has been a war that's been going on that it predates Arche. It's literally a 5-year war. And it's rare that you see that kind of war on the independents that makes its way through multiple promotions and territories and now finds itself fighting for the Arche Wrestling Men's Championship. So very excited for that one. It's going to be a championship night. We'll see the first defense of the Arche Wrestling Women's Championship as the champion Charity King takes on the UK's own Aaliyah James. So I'm very, very excited about that. We'll have a new championship crown. The men's tag team championship will be defended as the Ugly Gang takes on TME. That's going to be wild. And then there's a fourth title match. Yeah, a lot of them. And this is a big one. Fresh off the heels of Bound for Glory, the X Division Championship will be defended at Arche Wrestling. You heard me right. It is a 5-way scramble as Leon Slater will battle Fast as Hell Ian Maxwell, Soulfly Manny Lowe, Treehouse Lee, and Saeed Al-Sabah. All happen. Yes. It's happening this Saturday night, guys. Again, 4 title matches, plus you've got the number 1 contenders match. Cedric Alexander against LeBron Cozone. The winner becomes the number 1 contender for the Arche Wrestling Men's Championship. It's going to be wild. Maya World is back against Savannah Evans. That match alone is a killer. Owen Knight will be present. Shug D is present. Darian Bankston. Guys, this is going to be a really sick card.
Wow.
So yes, the X Division title, the men's championship, the women's championship, the men's tag team titles, all of that is happening Saturday night at Arche Wrestling. So you can go to archewrestling.com for tickets. Also, we've just launched our Patreon. So if you decide to be a part of the Patreon, there's some really cool things there, some behind the scenes, as well as, of course, links to all of our shows, including this weekend show. So guys, I'm telling you, Arche Wrestling is crushing it right now. And Close to Midnight is going to be very, very special this Saturday night, beginning at 4:30 for the pre-show, 6 p.m. start time for the main show. 4 titles on the line. All kinds of things are going to be happening this weekend at Arche Wrestling's Close to Midnight.
Wow. We are not messing about at Arche. X Division Championship on the line. Whoa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Slater could be in big trouble.
Trust me. That's a mountain to climb, man. That's a mountain to climb for sure. Wow, that's going to be crazy. Wowzers. Guys, on that note, on that high note,
Right.
we have run out of time. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the Black Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel. Of course, you can find us here every single Tuesday, 6 p.m. UK time, around about 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever else you are, work it out for yourselves. If you don't want to do that, you can always catch us on demand on YouTube. Gerard, tell the people where else they can find you also.
Of course, you can find me at Bonafide on all of the social platforms. Again, this weekend, I'll be in Charlotte as part of Ashe Wrestling's Close to Midnight. The next weekend, I'll be doing a free show with the Nightmare Factory that'll be streaming live. We'll tell you all about that next week. In addition, we've got some cool things coming up with Southern Honor Wrestling. And season 2 of my podcast is launched as well. It's called Bonafide Conversations. Episode 2 of season 2 dropped today. So you can check out that on any of the streaming platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, of course, at the Bonafide Podcast Network as well, bonafidepodcastnetwork.com.
Amazing stuff. And of course, you can find me on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram. And guys, thank you for joining us, everyone that has, everyone that does, and we will see you again next time.